Okay, well, have you had something decent to eat?
Not yet.
On to it, that's right.
Yeah. What do you think about this film?
Very interesting.
About the film? It was good.
I think it's thrown up a lot of questions.
You actually see me pointing.
Inspiring.
Someone in black there. There's a girl in black.
This is nice. Yeah.
Okay. Well, somebody who would like to say what they think about this film?
It was food for thought.
It was food for thought, yeah. Can you hear? Can you hear us?
I can hear you very well. I can hear you very well.
I think it threw up a lot of interesting questions that open your mind for debate.
That's right. To which there are no easy answers.
Some easier than others, but very interesting.
Which did you find easy?
Let me have a quick scout. What makes work boring and what makes it worthwhile was not too hard for me.
What did you conclude? What were you saying about that?
Well, I concluded, I was speaking for myself of course, that in my day job, this is an extra job I do, I work with elderly people and I find that they inspire me every day, but sometimes my colleagues make my job a little bit more difficult by well, I don't know the word to choose, but by interfering slightly from a distance and not really listening to the grassroots worker who knows firsthand what's going on. And so sometimes that is boring when you come to the same conclusion but you have to go the long route. So I find that, and whereas with coming here and doing my voluntary with the young people here, that's very worthwhile, and I get a different take on that, and I that's worthwhile.
That's exactly what I think is happening in the world. That we're forming bigger groups, bigger companies, corporations, nations, and the individual gets lost there. Yeah. And what people are interested in is people. Every person is different, yes. And that's what makes life interesting, and that's what makes it a surprise. And no two people are the same, and that's how we keep an interest. But everything is being organized in such a way that this is prevented. And so that is why I'm saying, how can we make it different?
Yeah.
By staying true to yourself, by speaking out, and by keeping a very open mind, and by sharing your thoughts and having a mutual respect for one another, I guess. For me.
Well, there you see, you're just saying, well, we'll hobble along and we'll try and mend it a bit and patch it and make it a bit less bad. And I'm saying, okay, you have to do that, but what about thinking of the future generations? And they're going to face exactly the same thing, and the more they get educated, the more difficult it becomes. So the jobs at used up their energies and their thought as they could be. And the new jobs which have been created recently, all been mainly low-paid jobs. And that is why I'm coming to you and I'm saying, we've got to do something different. Otherwise, it's just going to go on like this, and you're going to you have to work in Tesco's and stack the shelves.
I do think that the younger generation and the new generation of people are entrepreneur in a different way to us older generation, and they're much more switched on. I think government suppression is one way of, we need to change that. The government really needs to change it from the top anyway. I think that for me, that is the sticking point. We need to kick ass a bit more in that department, and but I've got confidence in the younger people. They're so much more switched on than we were, and I think just collectively they can make a big difference, but there is no quick fix, there is no magic wand, and you've got to be realistic about how much you can achieve in certain times. But I do think you're right, yeah. Ideally, we would love to do it overnight. It'd be wonderful to come up with new concepts at the flick of a switch. But we got to get rid of the government first.
You see, that's like saying let's get rid of the bad weather and the snow and the rain.
Or, well, no, not get rid of, but change. You know, I mean, obviously, I think with the government, it's an exception to the rule. Get rid of and start again. They're all, you know, for me, I'm speaking for myself. They're a hindrance. They're not a help. Collectively, I mean, we've got a coalition now. What difference is it making? Very little.
Making things worse.
In fact, thank you. It's actually making things worse.
Can you tell me when you had the experience of the perfect government?
We've never had. Not in my lifetime.
But it's nice
But
to have
it is the reality.
That is not. That can support the poor and that can see from their perspective.
There you go. Why don't we let someone else talk? Make it. Yeah. Go to.
Can we hear from
Thank you. It's enjoyable.
Oh, this is gonna go.
Julie, do you want to come forward and speak?
SE1 United members?
Yeah. That would help.
Does anyone want to say anything?
Okay. Can I sound you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go, Kai.
My attitude, you asked what's the attitude to the consumer society, and I think that it needs to be there in place because the country doesn't really have anything else to offer the people. So I think the only way that the country can stay afloat is if the consumer society is in place. Because if it goes, then jobs will be lost in this country.
And you see, what the previous lady was saying was that people are obstructing you. Do you feel that?
I don't feel like people are obstructing me. I just feel like life is.
Just what, sorry?
I don't think people are necessarily obstructing me, like personally me. I just think this way that it's set up so the country can run sufficiently.
Do you really think that if everything was efficient, everything would be okay?
When I mean efficiently, I mean like you said, is your what's your alternative to it? And I'm trying to say that if you stop consumerism,
What's your alternative?
I don't think there is one for this for where we are. I don't think there is one because we need people to buy because they don't have no raw materials, so we need people to buy stuff. That's what I think in this country.
Okay, well, this is not the first time a country has gone bankrupt. The countries have gone bankrupt many times, and then they have risen up again. Throughout the whole of history, there have been civilizations gone bankrupt. The Soviet Union went bankrupt.
Yep.
The previous government went bankrupt in many parts. In Italy, in the Middle Ages, big places went bankrupt. And then it rises again. And so you've got to have an alternative. Otherwise, you might be dead. You're just going to be flotsam on the waves.
I think there's an alternative, but I was just saying that for where we are now, I don't think the alternative for this type of community in it will like most like European countries and this country. I don't think there is an alternative because for you to make money, you need a raw material that Russia's got, is technology and oil or whatever what it's got. But I don't really think that if you take away consumerism, I don't think how you're going to get other jobs. I don't know how people are going to get jobs. That's what I'm thinking. Because H&M and Guess and Replay and all these things, they employ a lot of uni students, so they give a lot of jobs in it. So even though they're the problem, at the same time, they weren't there. A lot of people will have bigger problems. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, who else has got is a bit more optimistic than him?
But you, I hope. What's your opinion? What's your opinion of an alternative then?
I am saying that every time the population has grown in the past, there's been a lot of unemployment. There's been no place, you produce more people, there's no room for them. And this happened about 500 years ago, when people left the countryside and went to the towns because there was nowhere else to go. And then the towns became overcrowded. And so we are overcrowded. And there are going to be, in the next 20, 30 years, there's going to be 1 billion more young people in the world. 1 billion more. And what are they going to be doing? And the whole problem is how we keep people busy. Now, hitherto, what we have done is to get big corporations to turn you into part-time slaves and work for them. We give you a little bit of money and just enough to keep you alive. And what else can you want to do? And my alternative is to say all these jobs that are on offer are made to ignore the fact that you're each one of you different from everyone else, and you've got your own ideas. It's like you're buying ready-made clothes. They just put you in ready-made clothes, and you've got to look like everyone else.
I think, as I understand what Chiron was saying about there not being any other alternative now, because we don't have the raw materials, is the fact that what happened about 500, 600 years ago is they took the land, so we couldn't give us, provide for ourselves, and force us into the city. It wasn't that 500 years ago people just thought, oh, it'd be nice to live in a city. They couldn't provide for themselves, and so rather than growing their own food or being able to sustain themselves, they were forced into wage labour, and that's what we've got now. So what Chiron was saying is, for our country, there's not really many options out, because we don't have access to land to provide for ourselves, even if what we wanted to do all day was just make pretty, lip gloss or something. We couldn't do it. We don't have the things to make it. So that's, what sort of alternatives are you thinking, in 500 year time alternatives, or tomorrow? Because right now what people need is a wage, because we can't even get an allotment to grow our own food if we wanted to.
Okay, let me tell you something about food. Everything is becoming more expensive now. Food is going to become even more expensive, right? The more people you have, the more it becomes expensive. We have got technology which is producing all sorts of gadgets which are very nice, but which make life more expensive also. You've got to buy a phone, you've got to buy this, you've got to buy that. And the great difference between very poor countries and richer countries is that though we get more money, we have to spend more money. And so we may have a more complicated life, but we don't have anything extra. We're stuck. And I'm saying that with food, for example, cities are in a bad way because, first of all, they're going to run out of water in many parts of the world. If you put 25 million people in a place, there's just no water for them. And without water, you die. And not only without food, without water. And cities are full of slums where life is not very amusing. And you can't grow your own food. In the old days, you used to grow food from around the city. But now they've invented a new kind of food growing. They've invented vertical farms. Have you heard of vertical farms?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Like skyscrapers, each floor they have sort of hothouse, greenhouse, and you can grow things in this way. And then one can see that in due course, everybody will be growing part of their food themselves. And what you've got to do now, instead of producing technology, which doesn't get you, it doesn't do much for you, you've got to think about the essentials. What you want is a free house, you want free food, you want free clothing. How are you going to get that?
I think we've got to finish now because we've run out of time.
Why are you going to finish now?
Can I just say one thing? I think as well that the sort of sense of despondence that you may get, that perhaps was echoed in some of the things people said, is quite common. And I think it's very difficult to step outside of that headspace and look at much bigger alternatives when your immediate circumstances are quite difficult. So I think once we approach that maybe in a different way perhaps through alternative forms of education, then maybe we can start addressing the much, much bigger problems which would have a bigger impact.
I don't know about that, because we've got to say, are you really saying that you've got to go home now? You've got to shut down? Is that what you're saying?
We've got another speaker coming today. So
You want another what?
speaker.
Speaker?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you want me to stop now?
You can stay for it.
You can stay and listen if you like. You're more than
I'm perfectly
welcome.
happy. But I'd just like to say one thing about what you're saying, that you cannot think about the big things and you've got to do your immediate problems.
I don't
That's
think-
exactly what you're accusing the government of. The government just does laws to keep things going. And if you just think of your immediate needs and don't have long-term needs, long-term ideas, you'll never get anywhere.
I don't think it's impossible to think about the bigger problems. I just think it's harder to if your immediate circumstances are difficult.
What we want in these meetings is to create an atmosphere where we can think about longer-term problems. And I would like to meet you again when you've got time, and we will get down to it.
Come in and see us. We'd like to meet you.
All right.
Thanks, Theodore.